Oh, you're right. This was almost too easy.
Hello every pony, it's that super duper special time again because it's time for yet another cartoon ranking. Oh wait, that's not right. No, it's time for, oh please no. Oh boy, it's time for yet another fantasy harem review. This one's called The Greatest Demon Lord is Reborn as a Typical Nobody, just in case any of you cared and wanted to watch it for yourselves. Oh boy, this is gonna be so fun. I sure can't wait to watch it. So the anime begins with its main character Steve, who's a demon lord that rules the world. However, Steve has become so strong that not a person or thing can destroy him. Because of this, he got so bored of living without any challenges that he decides the only option is to reincarnate. Now when I first heard this, I thought Steve meant he was going to wait, die of old age, and then reincarnate as someone else. But no, after looking on the Wikipedia page, it says he commits Sudoku, which is pretty crazy. Guess it was too much for them to outright says he... you know.
Suicide is badass.
No.
While Steve is monologuing, he looks at what I think is a corpse of some grown-up version of Freyren. Who is this? His girlfriend? His wife? His daughter? His mom? His dad? I don't know. If this was his wife, then that'd at least be some genuine reason for him wanting to—
Oh my god!
But no, instead he wants to die since he's bored of never losing a fight. What an asshole. You rule the world, you're insanely powerful, you have thousands of chicks wanting to do the funny with you, yet you're still bored? Why is winning, or I guess losing a fight, so important to you? Is that the only thing you do for fun? Well, how about this? If you're bored and want a challenge, then try fighting people without using any of your magic. If you're physically super strong too, then how about fighting without using magic and without punching or kicking? If that doesn't work, then do all that while being blindfolded too. He's so broken that he can still win without using magic, without fighting, or without even being able to see his enemy. Actually, you know what? How about just stop fighting people in general? If you want a real challenge, then try beating Silver Surfer on NES. I've tried playing this for an hour and I still can't get past the first level. Here's another one that's nearly impossible. How about trying to win a patty cake tournament with John Fetterman?
The Eagles are so much better than the Eagles. No.
Anyway, 3,000 years later, Steve reincarnates as a 10-year-old villager where he lives with his mother and father in a regular village living a normal, average, everyday life. Well, good for him. The bastard got what he wanted. Just a regular, ordinary life where he can be normal.
Now I am utterly normal.
However, that completely goes out the window not even a minute later because Steve says that he trains and still remembers all the magic spells back when he was a demon lord. Not only that, but according to him, the level and power of magic seems to have lowered dramatically too. So you know what that means. Steve has the power and knowledge of super duper pooper spells, meaning he's stronger than everyone else. So let me get this straight. You bitch and moan about life being too easy and how you're bored that you're so much stronger than everyone else. You're an asshole for thinking like that, but you know what? I don't know what it's like to live that kind of life, so I wouldn't understand how you feel. Maybe you do genuinely want to live a normal life and want to experience regular challenges that everyday people face. That's fine, but if that's the case, then why go out of your way to train and learn, or I guess relearn magic? This is especially annoying since Steve is the only one who now has access to these super strong spells. Once again, this means that no one else is going to be able to beat him, meaning he reincarnated for absolutely no reason. The thing that boggles my mind is that there's a genuine good premise here, but it's ruined within minutes of the series starting. You have this demon lord that's so full of himself and bored that he craves a challenge and wants to live a thrilling life. He decides to run into a Goomba and then reincarnates 3,000 years later since he wants to handicap himself by living in a regular human's body. Since Steve is now an ordinary human, he's forced to relearn magic from the beginning and can only use weak spells at first. Or you know what? Here's another idea. Let's keep the premise of Steve maintaining all of his knowledge of spells and is fully able to use them. Since he's now 3,000 years in the future, magic has evolved so much that all those spells he knows are pretty much seen as basic tutorial ones. That would actually make more sense. Technology evolves as the years go on, so why wouldn't magic too? Anyway, Steve lives a regular life life for a while, makes some friends, goes to school, but then eventually shit hits the fan and a bunch of monsters or bad guys come. They destroy his village, hurt his friends, and maybe even kill his parents or something. Since Steve is now just as ordinary as everyone else, he isn't strong enough to save his friends, family, or his village. Steve then realizes that he shouldn't have taken his peaceful, happy life for granted since many of the people he grew to love are now gone.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
But no, this motherfucker goes out of his way to learn magic, and of course it just so happens that magic somehow devolved as the years went on. This really didn't bother me that much at first, but the more I think about it, the more I realize just how much the series managed to fuck up its concept immediately. Maybe the reason I was able to ignore this to a certain extent was because besides this, the first episode really isn't that terrible. Half of it centers on Steve trying to fit in with everyone, which he struggles with since his social skills are from 3,000 years ago. He doesn't know how to be hip with the kids. He's got to talk about Danny Phantom Tax, the Rizzler, Ohio, Skibbity Toilet, and my name Jeff.
My name's Jeff.
Steve also tries to befriend the self-called Fragrant Jr., but always seems to fail.
Weirdo.
Despite being completely overpowered, Steve still struggles to make friends, which is also not entirely a bad premise. Defeating monsters and bad guys is just as easy as ever, but adapting to the new world and trying to fit in isn't easy for him. While not what he was expecting, this could be the new challenge that Steve has been waiting for. Yes, it's really underwhelming and simple, but it's also sort of funny too. Maybe the show is much more slice of life and comedic, and the main premise is for Steve to make friends. This would basically be the poor man's Haganai, but I don't care. I take that version over what we got, which is a load of... So eventually a bunch of stinky goblins come, Steve unsurprisingly kills them and saves Fragrant Jr., and the two of them become friends. After that, there's then a 4-year time skip, which was kind of jarring as well as disappointing. The first episode being one big flashback is unique, and I was sort of looking forward to seeing more of Steve and Fragrant Jr. when they were kids. Maybe Steve shows her how to use super advanced spells, they make some friends, Steve gets into trouble or something, I don't know. At least it would have been something sort of different compared to every other shitty fantasy harem, which is what the series becomes starting with episode 2. So Steve and Fragrant Jr. begin attending a magic school, which, Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. I just can't get over this. If you want a regular, ordinary life, then why go to a magic school when you already know spells that are completely broken? What's the point of doing this? Just to show off? I thought you didn't want to show off. Do you? I don't fucking know. This is so stupid. This is like Tomiki using all 3 angeloids to rule the world in Heaven's Lost property. Can Tomiki do this if he really wanted to? Yes, but is he going to?
No.
What makes Tomiki a likable character is that while he is a perverted asshole, at the end of the day, he just wants himself as well as others to have fun and live a peaceful life. If he really wanted to, he could force Icarus, Nymph, and Astria to do everything he says. But again, he doesn't want to because he wants them to make their own choices as well as to take life easy and relax. If Steve wanted to challenge himself, he wouldn't be using magic and more importantly, wouldn't even bother going to a fucking school when he already knows everything. You know what? This is kinda crazy, but as I'm writing this, I keep coming up with new and better ideas for the series. How about let's keep the idea of Steve and Fragrant going to school, but let's make it so Steve isn't able to use any magic at all. Instead, Steve becomes Fragrant's teacher, shows her all his advanced magic, and wants her to become just as strong as him. Is this a great and original idea? Maybe not, but again, this sure as hell is better than what we have. I take this poor man's My Hero plotline over this pile of... After Steve and Fragrant join the academy, the series turns into exactly like every other fantasy harem. They meet a succubus and a red-haired chick who falls for Steve, as well as a good amount of the sluts in the school too. Despite being surrounded by a lot of chicks that want his nectar, Steve of course doesn't want to do anything with them since he's a big fat pussy. He doesn't even want to get into a relationship with one of them, go on dates, play Super Smash Brothers.
Characters, run off the stage.
He fucking sucks, the girls suck, and more importantly, the whole harem aspect sucks. Yes, there are a lot of girls that like him, but there's only 3 characters that like him that actually matter. So yeah, technically speaking, this is a harem, which is the only reason why I bothered watching it. Now, to be fair, there are some fan service scenes, not a lot, but they are there. Still though, there isn't enough, or at least I would have liked to see more. Anyway, if this red-haired chick didn't exist, then this most likely wouldn't count as a harem, since only Fragrant and the succubus would like Steve. Really wish that were the case because that meant I wouldn't have to waste my time watching the shit show. The funny thing is that removing her wouldn't make too much of a difference anyway. Obviously certain aspects would need to be rewritten, but she's not even a main character. She's listed as a side character on my anime list. Hell, the fucker isn't even on the main poster. It's just Steve, Freyren, and the succubus. Would it really have mattered if the series centered on only these 3 characters? Did this god-awful mess really need to be a harem? Is the author some sick fuck that watches my videos and knew I'd be forced to watch it if he added in another girl? Please, for the love of Jeffrey Epstein, if you're an author or want to write one of these awful fantasy series, then fine, go ahead and do it. But please, don't make it a harem, especially if it doesn't need to be one. Can't believe I'm saying this, but at the very least, Smartphone is and feels like a harem. Don't get me wrong, it's horrendous, but at least it merits being labeled as a harem.
I'm looking forward to our date.
Me as well.
Hold up! Hold up!
Hold up.
Anyway, like I already said before, Steve is overpowered, which completely removes any sort of stakes or tension the show could have had. It's one thing to have a show be generic. For example, Onei is pretty generic, but I wouldn't say it sucks. Sure, it's not good, but it's a dumb turn your brain off show that's at the very least watchable and can be enjoyed by harem fans. But to have a show be generic as well as to include an overpowered main character, like what the fuck am I even supposed to enjoy here? Another thing I've already mentioned before is that I'm not entirely opposed to characters being overpowered. The obvious examples are One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100, where both its main characters are insanely broken. Despite this, both shows still have stakes, are creative, and most importantly are entertaining since they're so well written. Characters don't even need to be overpowered. They can just be really good at one certain thing, like Senku from Dr. Stone. Senku is a genius, but that being said, physically he's not too strong, so that's his one major weakness. He may be insanely smart and can create pretty much anything, but that doesn't mean he's overpowered and unable to face challenges. With this shit show though, as well as other series, they all boil down to main characters being broken, uninteresting fights, as well as everything else being super generic. Look at episode 4, for example. Freyren's papa gets stabbed by some girl from the Amish Mafia, so that must suck for her since her dear sweet papa is... Just kidding. At the beginning of the literal next episode, it's revealed that Steve was able to heal him and save his life. So what? We get not even 2 full minutes of there being actual stakes? Not even saying characters need to outright die or anything. Just have there be consequences, stakes, or losses for the characters. Maybe Freyren's papa doesn't die, but instead he's unable to use magic ever again. That's a loss. That's something. I mean, since he's all fine and healthy again, what really came from all this? Freyren got kidnapped by the Amish Mafia. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Does that mean anything? Of course not. Steve flies all the way there by himself and kills them all without breaking a sweat. The fight doesn't look half bad, but does that really matter all that much when the writing is fucking dog shit? Yeah, the characters are always on model and the other fights look pretty decent, but the series still looks so generic. Not even joking. There was a point where I honestly thought I was rewatching a series that I already reviewed a while ago. That being said, overall the art is more than passable, and Silverlink did a... Hey, wait a minute. Silverlink made this? Are you fucking shitting me? They wasted their talent making this train wreck? 10 goddamn years I've been waiting for Bakken Test Season 3 and you motherfuckers decide to make this crap? Why waste all your time and money making shit like this when you can actually use it to make shows people care about? Same goes for any other studio that wastes their time making poo-poo shows like this.
Czy to Freddy Fazbear?
Anyway, one thing that's really jarring and weird is that the last 4 episodes take place in the past. The Amish Mafia send Steve, Freyren, and the succubus there and they try to help some king and his people or something. I don't know, I think I got a brain tumor by the time I got to this point. The one thing that's sort of interesting is that Steve meets an older and different version of himself. The only problem is that this happens so late into the series, and again, by this point I already gave up. It's like if you write your name in the namespace on a test you got a 0 on. Like, wow, congratulations, you got something right at least. Anyway, is there anything left to say that isn't already obvious? There's this one bully in episode 2 who's an asshole and he comes back in episode 7, but he's super fat for some reason. That caught me off guard and made me laugh, so that's something. There's also this one fight in episode 9 that has this super upbeat techno music for some reason, which was jarring but in a good way. Unfortunately, the OST wasn't on YouTube for me to listen to, so I can't say if the rest of the tracks were any good, but probably not since I don't remember any of them. Oh yeah, shout out to the one guy on Freyren's Papa's wiki page that said they'd smash him.
What the fuck?
Anyway, the Great Lord, whatever it's called, is god-awful. It had potential to be different and not too bad, but of course it's hot ass, which is why I'm giving it a 2.15 out of 10. Well, that was the anime, but good lord, there's a manga, and I really don't want to read... Oh, hey, wait a minute. Oh, would you look at that? There's not a harem tag on it, and it's the same for the light novel. Then why the hell is the anime labeled as a harem if the manga and light novel aren't? The manga is most likely going to be the exact same as the anime, so is this just my anime list being retarded again? Did I waste all this time reviewing yet another series that isn't really a harem but was just labeled as one by mistake? Either way, the manga is done, but I don't want to waste my time on it if it's not even labeled as a harem. And like I said, I'm like 99% sure it's just the anime but in manga form. Maybe there's some slight differences, the art might be worse, but that's about it. Unless this video gets a bunch of support and a lot of you want me to waste even more time on the shit show of a series, and this is where the review is gonna end. What you say? Well, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it and want to support me, you can either leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and make sure to hit the bell. You can also support me on Patreon or here on YouTube by becoming a channel member starting at only 99 cents a month.
But shit, it was...
There's also a Discord server up that you can join using the link down below. Anyway, time to go work on my 7-hour review of the greatest anime of all time, Heaven's Lost Property. That'll be out eventually.
My Diane, it can't be! Our meteor! What did you do to me?